In 1994, a family of 5 moved into an old 2-story home and shortly after began having multiple paranormal experiences. But before we get into their story, welcome back to Dark Wilderness, where I share encounters with the unexplained. If you've had an encounter you would like to share, please email it to me at the link below. And if you like today's story, please gently slap that like button, as I'll be uploading 3 to 5 times every week. So don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any future content. Now, let's get into today's encounter. This story comes from a family that wishes to remain nameless for the time being. In 1994, this family of 5 that consisted of a mother, a stepfather, 2 daughters aged 8 and 10, and a son aged 2 had just bought this old 2-story home. And this house, when you walk through the front door, immediately as you come through that front entrance, there's this big hanging light right above the front entrance. And immediately to the right of the entrance is a big coat rack that's built onto the wall. Right across from that coat rack is a set of stairs that runs up and to the left, and that leads to the second floor. From the front entrance, there's a hallway that runs almost the entire length of the house. As you go down this hallway, on the left-hand side, there's a big archway, and that leads into the living room. From inside the living room, there's another archway that leads into the dining room. You could also get into the dining room down that main hallway, because it runs from the front door all the way to the kitchen, which is located in the very back. And this kitchen runs the entire width of the house. On the far right-hand side of the kitchen, there's a narrow hallway that runs back towards the front of the house, and there's a set of stairs that leads down into the basement. When you go down these stairs, you're immediately met with a wall in front of you, so you have no choice but to turn to the right. So when you turn to the right, you're looking directly into the rec room. And if you look further to the right, there's another hallway that runs all the way towards the back of the house, and that's where their laundry room is. And along this hallway, there's a big storage room that's located right underneath the stairs. If you take the stairs on the main floor that go up and to the left to the second floor, when you get to the top of the stairs, there's a long hallway that runs straight ahead of you. Along that hallway on the left-hand side are 2 bedrooms, and that was where the kids slept. The 2 daughters shared a room, and the son had his own room. On the right-hand side of the hallway, that's where the master bedroom is, and at the far end of the hallway is where the washroom is. Now, shortly after the family moved in, the mother was in the master bedroom one day, and she was over by her closet, and she discovered all these little red handprints all over the wall by the closet. These handprints were too small to be her daughter's handprints and too big to be her son's. So she called her girls in and asked them if they had done that. The 2 sisters kind of looked at each other like, I didn't do this. If you did this, you better confess, because I'm going to get in trouble for it. But both sisters ended up saying that they did not do this. So the mother cleaned these handprints off, and she said she didn't even know what caused these handprints, like what type of material was used to make them, because she said it wasn't paint and it wasn't chalk. She just didn't know what this was, but she cleaned it all off before the stepdad got home. Shortly after, those handprints came back. This time the mother just ended up cleaning them off, and she didn't even bring it up to her children until years later. Now, both these daughters are fully grown. They live in their own houses and have their own families. And a couple of years ago, the mother told her youngest daughter that a few years ago, those handprints came back. And still, to this day, she has no idea what this red substance was that made these little handprints, but she'd wash them off every single time, but they would always come back. Now, the younger brother, who was 2 at the time, he ended up having a bad dream one night. And in this dream, he said he woke up and he left his room, went down those stairs, walked down the hallway on the main floor into the kitchen, turned, went down into the basement, got to the bottom of those stairs, turned right, and walked directly into the laundry room. And when he got into the laundry room, he said that there was this old lady with a shawl on, standing with her back to him. So he was standing there looking at this lady, and she turned around, and she had just had this ghostly face, and it traumatized this boy. He refused to go down into that basement for the longest time. He's older now, and now he'll go down there, but when he was growing up, he refused to go back into this basement. Now, what makes the family think that this may have been paranormal is the fact that years later, it was discovered that the brother actually sleepwalks. The dad and the stepmom actually ended up catching him sleepwalking when he was at their place. So the family's always wondered if this was a bad dream, or if maybe he did sleepwalk and actually encountered something in that laundry room. The mother also had some pretty paranormal stuff happen to her. There was this one day she was in the living room sitting on the couch, and she, out of the corner of her eye, caught some movement by the stairs. So she turned and looked, and there was this lady in a white dress walking up these stairs. And as this lady was going up the stairs, that light at the front entrance began violently swinging side to side. The mother sat there for a second, got up, walked towards the stairs, and looked up them, and there was nobody there. Now, that light that began to swing violently when that lady was walking up the stairs, years later, the youngest daughter got a call from her brother, who was house sitting at the time with his friend. And so she went over to the house with her friend, and when they walked into the house, her friend was standing directly below that light, and that light began violently shaking side to side. And her friend actually ended up saying, he's just out of there. He said he's not staying. He turned around and just left the house, and he refused to go back in. Now, the family had this old 19th century Chickering piano, and they would occasionally hear this piano randomly playing by itself. Now, this piano is not a player piano, so it's not designed to play by itself. So for it to be playing by itself really freaked the family out. The mother heard that playing the most out of anybody in the family. And the mother also, from time to time, would hear really old classical style music playing throughout the house. So when she would hear it, she would go walk around and try to find the source of this music. And she actually said that one time she followed the sound of the music up the stairs, and she said it sounded like it was coming from in the attic. Now, they didn't have any form of record player or anything like that up in the attic, so she cannot explain why this music was coming from up in the attic. Now, the stepdad, he kind of refused to believe what was going on because he hadn't really experienced anything himself, because he worked a night shift, so he was always working when everybody was home, and then he'd be sleeping during the day while the kids were at school. On this one time, he came home from a shift and he went to bed. He'd been sleeping for a few hours, and he got woken up by the sound of kids playing and just making a ton of noise. So he got pretty frustrated. So he got up, left his room, went down the stairs, walked all the way into the kitchen where the mom was, and asked the mom, what are the kids doing? Where are they? Why are they being so loud? And the mom told him the kids were at school. So this kind of confused the stepdad, because he knows that he heard kids playing and making tons of noise, but it didn't make sense to him how he could have heard that if the kids were at school. So he just kind of went back upstairs and went back to bed. A little while later, he was in the kitchen, and from in the kitchen, he had a full view into the dining room. So he was sitting at the kitchen table, and all of a sudden this picture on the wall in that hallway right at the dining room came off the wall and straight to the floor and smashed. So he couldn't quite explain that, so now he was kind of starting to realize that, hey, they're right, there is something going on here. So it kind of started to make him notice more things that were going on around the house. Because shortly after that picture came off and hit the ground, he was sitting in the kitchen again, and there was a cuckoo clock in the kitchen that he had put up recently. And this cuckoo clock, it didn't just fall to the floor. It came flying off the wall, across part of the kitchen, and slammed into the floor right in front of him. After that happened, he was a definite believer that something was just not right with the house, that some weird stuff was happening. So he became a lot more open to stuff when people would tell him their experiences inside the house. Now the youngest daughter, this one time, she didn't do her homework before supper, and she had a big project due the next day. So she actually set an alarm to wake up when everybody was sleeping, and she was going to work on her project. So her alarm went off in the middle of the night. She got up, started working on her project, and she was lying in bed while she was doing this. She ended up falling asleep, and she said that all of a sudden it felt like somebody was pulling on her legs and shaking her to wake her up. Now she had been experiencing really weird stuff in the house for quite a while, so she was very used to all the weirdness going on. So it didn't really faze her. She just kind of got up, finished her project, and went to bed. Now, there was this one time that when they were a little bit older, they had gone up into the attic one day, and when they were up in that attic, they found this big chest, and inside this chest was just full of documents, papers, and drawings. And it turned out that this house was the only house on that street at one point, and surrounding that house was a bunch of factories and work buildings from way back in the early 1900s. Now, sometime after the two daughters, they had grown up and they had moved out with their own families, the mom, the stepdad, and the brother were at home, and there was a knock on the front door. The mom got up, she walked to the front door, opened it up, and in front of her there was a lady and a girl. Now, this lady said that her and her daughter actually used to live inside that house, and she asked the mom if she wouldn't mind just taking a picture of them out front and sending her a copy when she got it developed. The mom said, yeah, sure, that's not a problem. So she went, got her camera, came back, took a picture of them out in the front, got the lady's contact information, and said, okay, yeah, as soon as I get this developed, I'll send you a copy. A little while later, the mom took the film to get developed, and when she got the pictures back, in that picture where those two had been standing, there was nobody. And in the place of where they were standing were just two lights. Now, to make it even more creepy about this picture, shortly after it was taken, it seemed to have just vanished from the house. The family has no idea where it went. They've never been able to find it. It's just gone. Now, since all this, all three kids, they've grown up, moved out, but the mom and the stepdad, they still live in that house today. And some weird stuff still does happen, but they love their home and they're never going to leave. Well, that's it for today's encounter. I happen to know this family very well, so if you have any comments, please leave it in the comments below, because I'd really love to know your thoughts on this one. As always, thank you so much for the support so far. You guys have been awesome. Thank you for coming back, and we'll see you next time.